Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon us all. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Dedi Muzaki. I'd like to introduce my research team on isolation, purification, and characterization of Mannan degrading enzyme for a new isolate Acinobacter baummanni. Our research team are Dr. Engineer Aji Sutrisno MSc, Sandi Santoso, and also Professor Dr. Engineer L. Zubaida MP, Department of Agricultural Processing Technology, Faculty of Agricultural Technology, Brawijaya University.
And including hydrolytic enzyme, which according to Utomo in his research, 80% of enzyme application in industry. First of all, I will introduce in my research it is about maintenance enzyme and including hydrolytic enzyme, which according to Utomo in his research, 80 of enzyme application in industry are using hydrolytic enzyme. By Utomo 20,000. First of all, I will introduce in my research it is about maintenance enzyme and including hydrolytic enzymes, which according to Utomo in his research, 80% of enzyme application in industry are using hydrolytic enzyme. By Utomo 2012, the hydrolytic process using enzyme is perfect because the product obtained are more specific. Process condition can be controlled and products flavor toxic byproducts, making them environmentally friendly and easy to apply by saying et al. The hydrolysis process using enzyme is perfect because the product obtained are more specific. The hydrolysis process using enzyme is perfect because the product obtained are more specific. Process condition can be controlled and produce fewer toxic byproducts, making them environmentally friendly and easy to apply. The enzyme that can hydrolyze Mannan polymer is manganese. Manganese enzyme is an enzyme that can randomly hydrolyze 1.4 beta D-monocytic bond in the main kind of Mannan and heteromannan into mannose, glucose, and galactose by Adebayo et al. One of the roles of the manganese enzyme in industry is an application to produce monocollagene is one of the role of the manganese enzyme. One of the role of the manganese enzyme in industry is one of the role of the manganese enzyme in industry is first application to products monocollagene.
First of all, I will introduce in my research. It is about manganese enzyme and including hydrotonic enzyme, which according to Otomo in his research, 80% of enzyme application in an industry are using hydrolytic enzyme for the hydrolytic process. The hydrolysis process using enzyme is preferred because the products obtained are more specific. Process conduction can be controlled and produce fewer toxic byproducts, making them environmentally friendly and easy apply. Signed et al. 2018. The only enzyme that can be hydrolyzed manganese polymers is manganese. Manganese enzyme is an enzyme that can randomly hydrolyze 1.4 beta D monocyte bond in the main chain of manganese and hydrogenase into manganese, glucose, and galactose. Abiot et al. 2017. One of the roles of the manganese enzyme is in industry is the application to produce monoligous product in includes oligories. Oligories themselves act as functional food because they are able to stimulate microflora such as bifidobacterium, bifidus bacteria, and laborers in digestive tract, thus making the blends of micro interesting to help disease. Besides that, the benefit of oligosaccharide function in their role is regulating blood sugar and cholesterol level, as well as increase the absorption of minerals. Savitino 2017 in induction, Mannan's enzyme has a role in the processing of coffee bean. In the coffee industry process, the Mannan's enzyme facilitates the hydrolysis of Mannan coffee. Therefore, the water bound to the Mannanas is released due to the hydrolysis of Mannanas in coffee. Therefore, the water bound to the Mannanas released due to the degradation process by Mannanas enzyme. It can save energy costs in the drying process of coffee products and fermentation to increase the desirability of animal feed. Mannan is widely used in industry. One of the highest sources of mannan is found in porang tubers. Porang, or Amabilis molleri bloom, is an annual local plant that grows a lot of in Indonesia forest. The tuber has a very high glucose content of 19.98% with a viscosity of 27.970 cbs. In addition, pork has benefit as food ingredient as well as function food. Farmers in Indonesia have exported large quantities to China and Japan. Utilizing because of bacteria to produce enzyme is very beneficial. Why? Why is that? Because enzyme product by bacteria can be produced along with the along of growth. Besides that, its chapter can easier Utami 2017. After isolation and molecular identification using 16S rRNA sequence analysis showed that the isolate we found on rooting form tube on moist soil surface were 99.67% similar to Ableton banana. The Acinobacter baummanni bacteria that we found were able to produce the manganese enzyme. We have several methods in our research, starting from isolation of bacteria from growing porang on moist soil, the obtaining pure isolation and determining of the ovulin person conduction along with their growth and standard curve, and finally enzyme purification and enzyme characterization. The first is bacterial isolation. Bacterial isolation was carried out by diluting a sample rotten porang in pot media that had been incubated for 27 hours, temperature 370 Celsius, duration of 10 until 1 to 10 until 9, 8. The rest of four dilutions were taken. From the result of its dilution, it was included into conjunct agar media in Petri dish using the spread plate method. Then put it in incubator at 3070 Celsius degree for 24 hours. Then the straight plate method was carried out. After obtaining pure isolate, The second of identification of bacteria using the 16RNA method. The first step in this method is the extraction of clonal DNA from isolates that are completely pure. The extraction using kit quickly DNA Furingal kit produced by Zimo research during the DNA extraction process. Cell will use the lysis buffer provided in the kit, after which the DNA was purified using the kit DNA clean and concentrator. The DNA concentrator obtained was measured using the ND1000 software on a computer device connected to the nanodrop machine. Enzyme purification. Prior to enzyme purification, a bacterial growth curve was first tested to determine the operating time for enzyme products and bacterial growth to the dead phase with enzyme pouring flour media. The incubate using an incubator from 27 hours at 37 degrees Celsius, measuring the level of 570 nm using a UV spectrometer. Enzyme purification. Then the enzyme purification was carried out using the 70% concentration of ammonium sulfate processing method. The next stage in dialysis using the silicon bag for 27 hours under good condition temperature. Enzyme purification. Prior to enzyme purification, a bacterial growth curve was first tested and determined the optimum time for enzyme production and bacterial growth to the dead phase. With enzyme pouring for media, the incubator using incubator from 24 hours at 37 Celsius, measuring the value of 570 nanometer using a UV spectrometer. Enzyme purification. Then the enzyme purification was carried out using the 70% concentration of ammonium sulfate processing method. Then the next stage in dialysis using a silicone bag for 24 hours under the good condition temperature 4 degrees Celsius, and every 10 hours a new buffer is replaced. After that, it was dripped using a concentration of 1 molar to determine the success process in the dialysis process. The test is by adding 5 ml washing the buffer plus 3 drops of 1 mole concentration of BCl, and indicating that dialysis process has not ended in mark if there is a white precipitate and the dialysis process, and if there is no white precipitate. Mannan's enzyme characterization. The characterization of Mannan's enzyme carried out was determination of the enzyme activity at the optimum temperature, the determination of enzyme activity at the optimal pH, the determination of the temperature stability of Mannan's enzyme, determination of the pH stability of the enzyme to substrate substitution test by the Mannan's enzyme, and the effect of Mannan's enzyme on the addition of metal ions. Data analysis. The research method used in the description method. The result of the study of obtain clear zone in Mannan's enzyme production bacteria to obtain the Mannan's enzyme and effect of adding enzyme to factory of glycerin will be explained in described form. The parameter observed include the activity of Mannan's enzyme, molecular weight, temperature, and optimum pH, pH stability at temperature, and the effect of metal ions on the Mannan's enzyme will be described quantitatively. Isolation of various enzyme production bacteria. After obtaining pure cultivates from multiple screening with the stick plate method, the bacterial isolates were then tested using conglomerate 1% again to confirm the success of enzyme maturity properties of bacteria. This picture is described isolate selective media by staining conglomerate. Measurement of the clear zone based on the monolithic index or IM. The monolithic index was obtained by comparing to clear zone with the diameter of colony which was measured using a rule. This table bacterial isolate result isolation. You can look at the slide. Table 1 shows that monolithic index on M2 is higher than on M1, M3, and M4 with a clear zone diameter of 28 cm and monolithic index of 22.8. The result of the clear zone is directly proportional to enzyme activity in the bacterial identification molecular identification method with 6 sRNA, which use to determine the genus as well as the species of bacterial isolate found because it has a faster ability with high sensitivity and specificity. This identification was carried out in Jakarta by the several of genetic science to detect PCR product DNA electron was performed using 0.8% TBA across. After getting the result from electrolysis that they are compared with marks in order to know the size of the PCR result in BP units or base pairs. The result of electrolysis can be seen in the figure 16 as well as the marker used in figure 2. This figure 2 photos and colony PCR visualization on the M2 sample and the marker used. After obtaining the DNA sequence for the M2 isolate, it was then compared with the NCBI database using a blast search basic local alignment search tool in order to find specific of microorganisms that are similar or have similarity to have several DNA sequence. The sample results shown that higher similarity with Acinobacter strain EH, having a similarity level of 99.67%, with the percent value in the overall analysis correlates reaching 99%. Phylogenetic tree construction. From this result, it thus contract in completing two phylogenetic tree with result as shown in figure 2.0. This is my sample in phylogenetic tree. Figure 2 phylogenetic tree of bacterial sample M shows the relationship with bacteria found in cat bank. Determinants of optimum product condition. An enzyme isolate. The crawled phase of bacteria consists of 4 phases, namely the first phase is called in the leg phase. The second phase is called exponential phase. The third phase is called stationary, and the fourth phase is called the death phase. The result of the curve above show that cell growth in varies from 0 to 4 hours. This is because there is a lag phase where bacteria are still in the adaptation stage in environment, pH, temperature, and nutrient. In the exponential, still in the adaptation stage to environment, pH, temperature, and nutrient. In the exponential phase, in the end of very fast growth of bacterial cell at the 6th hour to the 18th hour. The exponential phase occurs at 20th hour where the bacterial cells are no longer dividing to multiply. After the 20th hour, There was a deadly phase where the count of bacteria decreased drastically because the nutrient in the meat and energy reserve began to decrease. The result of the enzyme activity curve in figure 4 beside so the activity of the manganese enzyme began to increase at the first hour until it reached its peak at 20 hour, while the space was less than increase and bacteria in their growth as well as their enzyme activity. After that, our enzyme activity began to decline, so it can be concluded that the optimal production time is considered to be 20 hours for a specimen of bacterial isolate that produces the manganese enzyme. That picture shows the figure for Baker growth curve and enzyme activity. Manganese enzyme purification. The purification process carries out the precipitation with manganese sulfate and release. Look at the table 2 manganese enzyme purification table. The result of the above enzyme purification can be concluded that specific activity of the manganese enzyme increase, along with purification state increased crude extract enzyme activity precipitation of elimination sulfate 70% and transition specific had specific entry of 0.3301925.379 U per mg. The activity of enzyme increased because the higher of level of purity it was in the line with the increase in the specific activity of the enzyme. Minus enzyme characterization of the temperature. The specific activity of manganese enzyme produced by antibacterial banana strain EH increased with increased temperature until it reached its optimum peak at 45 degrees Celsius, which was 3.890 U per mg. Then at temperature of 50, 55 up to 60 Celsius degree, the activity decreased successively, namely 3.202, 1.764, 1.158 U per mg. This because the higher of temperature exit in optimal temperature, the lower activity due to protein destination. Destination of the protein causes the structure of enzyme fold to open in surface to the activity side chain and cause a decrease in enzyme activity. Based on the result of professional research, it turned out the manganese enzyme has an optimum temperature that varies depending on the source in protein microorganic space. Use aspergillus manganese, it has optimum temperature of 75 degrees Celsius. Pan et al. 2010 Bacillus subtilis WY34 has optimum temperature of 65. Based on the result of the study, the activity of manganese enzyme from antibacterial banana strain EH showed that the optimal pH of the enzyme produced by this bacteria show a pH of separation 11.407 U per mg and classified as natural at pH 4 until 5. It shown a small activity successfully 2.872 3024. This is because enzyme is not able to work well at the low pH. But when the enzyme exceeds pH 7, namely pH 9 and 8 until 9, it shows higher activity than pH 4, pH 5, but drop dramatically when pH 10. If this due to nature of enzyme protein, which is not acidified, in more resistant to base but is to alkane. The enzyme activity decreases. So the Mannan's enzyme produced by bacterium Acinobacter strain its work optimally at pH 7, and it turns out several Mannan's enzymes have different optimum pH. Although they happen on the one same, it depends the source of the specific of microorganism that produce the enzyme. Such a Bacillus SPSM 1.4 has optimum pH of 7. Enzyme suitability tests several variation. Based on the data in Figure 7, the manganese enzyme produced by the bacterium enzyme pattern strain it after being incubated for 30 minutes was able to stabilize a temperature of 40 until 50 Celsius degree with a relative activity of 82.616%, respectively 80.941%, and higher enzyme activity was at a temperature of 45 degrees Celsius with a relativity value of 93.139%. Then, after that, it decreased at temperature of 45 until 70 degrees Celsius. The relative activity decreased in succession to 54 and 54.519%, 25.579%, 8.641%. The picture describes that feature affect temperature stability of an enzyme. Based on the result of a research conducted by previous research, every microorganism capable of producing manganese enzyme has enzyme stability of different temperature. Such enzyme produced by aspiculus manganese with a stability and temperature of 65 until 70 degrees Celsius. Lieutenant Ramos has stability at 40 until 75 degrees Celsius. See al. 2019, and Bacillus SPN 16 until 5 has stability at 60 until 75%, 75 degrees Celsius. E at all 2008. Enzyme suitability test several variations of pH. The result of experiments that have been carried out show the stability of manganese enzyme activity in the bacterium antibacterial balance strain. EH was obtained at pH 7 until 8 with relative activity of 90.059%, respectively 86.599% in several previous studies. There were manganese enzyme produced Bacillus subtilis which were stable at pH 4.5 until 7. Cheng et al. 2016. Bacillus subtilis strain Man 511 was stable and pH 6 until 7. Utami 2017. Characterization test on manganese enzyme. From the experimental result above, it can be concluded the enzyme has the highest activity on the curcum substrate with relative activity of 137.12%. The second highest enzyme activity is found on the Konyakos substrate with a relative activity of 96.812%, while the while the lowest relative activity is boron fluor with a relative activity of 55.52%. Effect of material ion on enzyme activity. In this study, metal ions were used to see effect of metal ion on enzyme activity. In this study, metal ions were used to see their effect on enzyme. Metal ions themselves can be cofactor or inhibitor for enzyme. The metal ions used were CaCl2, NaCl, MnCl2, KCl, as well as a specific inhibitor of ETTA on enzyme activity produced by isolate of Acinobacter baummanni strain EH. Then the enzyme was tested by adding the metal ion above. Then incubate for 30 minutes at 45 degrees Celsius pH 7 after which the specific activity was measured. Then compared with the control without treatment. This picture describes the effect addition of cofactor and inhibition on activity managed enzyme. The result of the experiment showed that the addition of Mn2 plus ion to MnCl2 result in the highest increase in activity among all treatment, which was 118.468%, with K plus ion in KCl and Na plus ion in NaCl, and it reduces the activity of enzyme test. Conclusion: Mannan dragging microba was isolated from rotting boron tubes. Amorphous molecular identification using 16S rRNA sequence analysis revealed that isolate show 99.67% similarity with Acinobacter baummanni, a crude enzyme for ammonium sulfate. Person was used for primary characterization. The characterization results show that the enzyme activity was optimum at 45 Celsius degree. They are stable at 40 at the 50 Celsius degree, while the optimum pH was 7 and stable at pH 7 under 8. The substrate with the highest relativity activity was formed in curcum, which was 137.512%. The enzyme activity was inhibited by Ca, Na, K ion and increased by Mn2 ions. I think that is all. If there is something more for me, focus to me. And finally, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.